Welcome to episode 28 of the Bobcast. We're talking to all 6 of our in-season spring sports head coaches. We begin with baseball head coach Guy Robertson. Baseball last week, losses to York and Mary Washington, a huge Game 2 win over Mary Washington, 8-4, in what Coach called the biggest win of the season on Saturday. Frostburg baseball now 6-8 in conference play with 4 games to go, and 4 games coming up all in the next 7 days. Coach, I'll start with this. A strange trend in the last 5 conference games. Frostburg is 0-3 when Greg Schneider and Brady Adam throw, and we talked about this a little bit on Saturday. Both games with Corrigan and the bullpen crew finding a way to navigate through 9 innings are wins for your teams. Can you put together a reason for losing games with your top pitchers, and then you go to the 3-man and the bullpen, and your team's able to gut out wins against quality opponents in CNU and Mary Washington?
Well, I think it speaks to the resilience of the guys that we've been able to run out there at that point in time. And just, I think we've been able to find a way when our backs have been against the wall the most. And just be getting great efforts out of some of those bullpen guys and Richardson and certainly Livingston and, Chase in there in the one spot. And then he comes up big yesterday, too. And Logan has been able to set the tone at the beginning of those games with coming in and throwing strikes and putting up zeros on the scoreboard and just being able to find a way to get through 9 innings with, a non-traditional way of doing it. But I think that's been key for us, obviously, just to kind of get a couple of those wins against some really good clubs and just keep pace, trying to get into the tournament, the tournament pace. And I can't put my finger on it, because Brady has pitched well enough to win both ball games, and we just haven't had a lot of luck go our way. And some of that's on us. We haven't done a very good job of playing defense behind either guy over those 3 starts. But I think we just have to have the mindset of it doesn't matter who's on the mound. We got to go and we got to come and do our job each day, no matter what we're tasked with. And it can't just be up to these guys to strike out a bunch of players. And even though Brady struck out, I think 15, he still had balls put in play where we needed to make some key plays in some crucial situations that didn't get made. But I will say this. I can think of a double play ground ball that didn't get turned in the first game against Mary Wash, where there was an inning where there was a couple ground balls with some tough hops that we made plays on in the second game that kept us in the ball game and certainly kept the momentum with us. I don't know why it's been hard, but I know that the focus and the preparation this week are going to be key for both of those 2 guys you aforementioned there with Greg and Brady, because we need them to set the tone and lead the way. And I think that if they go out and the biggest thing is that, we didn't put up a 0 in any one of those first innings, I don't believe, in any 3 of those games. And that's a hard way to get off on the wrong foot. And even if it's 1 run, that's tough. So I think just coming out and getting through the first inning, and I think that's been, crucial for Corrigan in those 2 games where we've come off losses over the last 2 weekends. We've got a 0 put up in that first inning of the second game, and it gives you a chance to come up and hit with, a little less pressure and a little more relaxed. And I think that's just key, because you want to just come out of the bullpen and, put up a 0 and allow you to do some things and feel good when you're coming to bat. Now, obviously, on York, I was on the road, and we had a chance to do some things ourselves before they actually come to bat, and we weren't able to do it. But, look, sometimes you're going to have outings that Greg had on Wednesday. They've been few and far between in his career, and, we're going to give him the ball when it's his turn, and we're going to take our chances with that. So I think that he will be a lot more focused and be ready to go when he takes the ball here this week against Southern Virginia. And I'm excited about the opportunity that he gives us. Certainly still excited about the opportunity that Brady Adams given us. He's given us a chance to win the games, and that's all you can ask for out of your starting pitcher is to give you a chance. So we're going to need him here down the stretch, and certainly if we're going to get into the conference tournament, it's going to be because of some of the things that those 2 guys do on the mound.
A trend I'd like to ask you about is, after the York loss, Frostburg has dropped to 1-6 in conference road games. Is there anything to that, and is all the travel and the weather starting to wear on this baseball team, and how do you combat that?
Well, first off, you got to go on the road in the CAC, and you're going into a hostile environment no matter what the situation is, no matter how many practices you've had outside, no matter how many home games you've had, no matter how few times you've been on the road. But then you add it all up and you say, hey, not only do you have to go on the road to face a tough opponent, but you also have to continuously be on the road, and you don't have a lot of chance to correct things that need to be corrected. And now you face teams that, from top to bottom, CAC baseball is the most competitive sport in the conference. And, at any time, anybody can beat you. And now you got to be prepared for that. And, when some things aren't going well, or, the momentum's not on your side, or guys are struggling and you're slumping a little bit, it gets exploited by these clubs. And especially with us, I think we talked about at the beginning of the year, you get the bullseye put on your back and you get everybody's best shot. And, they expect this and that and another thing. And sometimes it just, the product isn't that great that you put out there some days, and it's tough. And, I don't like it. But with a lot of those games have been in a row, and you're going against, you're constantly getting on the bus and going. And I mean, the whole front end of our conference slate's all on the road. And then the couple home games that were supposed to get sprinkled in there got postponed, or we had to switch the site and things. So it offset it even more. You're constantly on the road more. So look, it is what it is. And those things are behind us now. Maybe I should be grateful for the one win that we do have on the road, because that's put us in a position to be where we are, at least to have a chance here at the end where we can, run the table here and play some games at home and do what we need to do to get in. So at the end of the day, we still have our own destiny in our hands.
Yes.
And what else can we ask for than that? So I'll count that as in the positive section here. And we've been through a lot of adverse things this year. There's no question about it. We could go on and talk about it, but it is what it is. And here we sit on April 23rd on a Monday with 4 conference games left, and all we can do is focus on those and do the best that we can with those opportunities. And hopefully we can put enough together to get where we need to be.
Here's an interesting question for this point in the season. Is this baseball team still searching for its best combination at the plate and in the field in terms of lineups? I'm thinking about catching, second base, outfield. We've seen some different guys in different spots in the last couple weeks.
I wish I had an exact answer. It's definitely been, for one reason or another, some guys struggling, some guys coming along. It's just some difficulties throughout. Some guys have slumped, and some guys haven't played well. Some guys have played well at times that give you some hope. I mean, here's a perfect example. Trey D'Amico gets an opportunity in Game 2 against Mary Washington this weekend, and he plays great. And in his last at-bat, he's trying to get a bunt down, and he gets drilled in the head with a fastball. And now he's out with a concussion, and he can't play yesterday in a non-conference game to kind of continue to get things going. We've had other situations like that where guys have gotten hurt when Jason Paredes is going great and he's out for a month with stitches in his hand, and Garrett Blank tears up his knee and he can't play anymore, and there's 2 of your catchers that are out. And you got other guys that just, for one reason or another, it's been hard to get a consistent group out there. We've been searching for our best 9 guys, and we've tried a lot of different combinations. Here's the one positive about it. You got 12 to 15 guys who are battle-tested at this point and know that, hey, they could be called on at a moment's notice, and they should be prepared to go out and handle whatever's asked of them, because they've all gotten equal opportunities. They've gotten tremendous amount of play to this point, and they've all been in some conference situations. So they shouldn't be, they should be able to go out and play relaxed, confident baseball, because they've at least been there some before, for the previous 14 conference games. So hopefully we can draw on some of that, and with whatever combination that we have to run out there for whatever reason, guys can be prepared. And that's hard because we haven't had a lot of field time, and we haven't had a lot of time to work things out together on a baseball field on dirt. But we've had to deal with some of these adversities in games, and that can hopefully prepare you in some way, shape, or form for what we're about to go through over the next week. And those are things that you got to draw on. It's just something that's tough. It's not an ideal situation, but it is what it is. And we've got to reflect on these, 14 conference games and allow us to use what we've done well and what we've done poorly, and just go out and play the next 4 games for what they are. Not put more pressure on ourselves because, oh, well, we got to win this, we got to win that. Yeah, we do have to do those things in order to get in, but you can't play the game that way.
That was going to be my last question here. 4 games to go. 8-10 last year wasn't good enough to get into the tournament with tiebreakers. You go 3-1 the rest of the way, odds are you are in. We went through the whole scenario before we had this conversation. You don't run into too many must-win baseball games during the course of the regular season. What in the mental aspect of it, how are you trying to get your guys ready?
Well, I think we just have to play each game like it's a conference tournament game in order to advance. You have to win to advance, and I think that that's the approach you got to take. And you hate to be in that situation at this time of year, but that is where we are. So we have to play Southern Virginia like it's a chance to advance in the conference tournament. And if you don't win, you don't advance. And I think we have to treat each of the last 4 games like that until we either are in or we're out. And I think if we take that approach and just play that 9 innings for that 9 innings, and we just have to go all in and just leave it out on the field for 9 innings, then, we have a chance to be successful. But if we're worried about, oh, well, this scenario or that scenario, or, trying to scoreboard watch, or, hope that this team's going to beat that team, that won't ever work. We just have to go out and handle our business. And you know what? When we go out and we put our best foot forward, it's been really good this year at times. But there's been other days where it's been really bad. And I don't really have an answer for why, you've seen both ends of the spectrum in one day.
Oh, yes.
Over the last 2 weekends. So, look, Southern Virginia, we're going to go play 9 innings of baseball against them. We're going to run our best pitcher out there against them, and I expect him to give us an opportunity to win the ball game. And if for some reason we run into a couple bumps along the way, then we're going to have fresh guys available to try to pick him up. And we're going to do what we need to do offensively and defensively to try to win that baseball game. And then we'll move on to Saturday, and we'll take each game Saturday with that same approach and same energy and focus, I hope. And then we'll move on to Monday. And hopefully by the time we get to Monday, you know what? Either all the chips are on, or we got to push all the chips to the table to get in, or, maybe we've already had to push all the chips to the table and we lost. I don't know. But you know what? This is why you play. You play to get to the postseason. You got to have the guts and the heart to compete and go out and do these things in these types of scenarios. And you know what? Our backs have been against the wall the last couple of weeks, and when we've been able to find a way. And we've played some of the best teams in the country, and we've been able to find a way. So these are all things that are feathers in our cap, but, they don't mean anything unless you win the next one. So Southern Virginia is next up for us, and we're going to do what we got to do to try to beat them, and then we'll move forward. And win or lose, we're going to move forward to Saturday, and we're going to try to figure those out.
Should be fun. This is what it's all about this week. 4 games to go, 1 week to do it.
No question. The weather's going to be good. We're going to put the uniform on. If we got to get on the bus a couple times to go do it, we'll have to do that. And if we'll play here at home, we'll do that. And, we're just going to go play for the next week. And all I can say is that I'm going to grind it out. The guys are going to grind it out, and we're going to try to do the very best we can to get to the postseason.
Coach, thanks for your time. Good luck this week.
Thank you.
Next up, we have softball head coach Wes Landrum, and softball in this past weekend, 2 wins over Mary Washington in Fredericksburg, a 10-inning winner in Game 1, a 7-3 win in Game 2. The Bobcats then took on number 11 CNU, lost 11-3, and then 6-5 in extra innings. So Frostburg softball now 18-14, 5-7 in CAC play, in 4th place with 2 more games to be played today, Monday. The Bobcats are in the tournament and will finish either 4th or 6th. But regardless, we'll end up in Newport News for the first game of the CAC tournament. That will be against Penn State Harrisburg, no matter what, unless Mary Washington has to finish the game in which it has a tie. So lots of convoluted stuff there. We'll just leave it alone. Coach Landrum, Game 1, Mary Washington, 10-inning game. Despite 4 errors in that game, there were some big plays defensively. The double play to get out of the 7th, a thrown-out runner trying to steal in the 8th, throwing a runner at 3rd in the 10th. Did you like some of the situational plays your team made defensively to win that game? And for you, is it about time to see some of those plays with some struggles your team has had earlier in the year?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a good growth game for us, especially making those a little bit not normal play. I think is was nice to see. The double play was fantastic. It was just a ground ball to Brittany, stepped on third, throw to first. She's spectacular at those types of plays. Yeah, I mean, in the 10th inning, it's the international tiebreaker. So we had gone up one, ground ball to Sam, and Sam sees the runner going in front of her. So it was a easy play, I guess, if we can pitch and catch. But it was nice to see that growth a little bit, especially. And I think, yeah, I mean, some of that is just getting able to play on dirt on a regular basis and being able to be outside of normal.
I think it's a step forward for your team. And then in game 2, I think there's another step because it's the second game that Frostburg has won in conference in which Allison Short doesn't throw. Caitlin Merling, the complete game win. Allie Weeman, a big 3-run double. How big is it for the collective confidence of your young team to get a win even without Allison Short out there doing what she does best on the mound?
Sure. I mean, I think anytime you can win without Allison, it's a bonus. She's such a fantastic pitcher. Caitlin and Allie have struggled a little bit from time to time, and I think it was nice to see Caitlin come in and throw strikes, and Allie, has been swinging the bat really good in practice, getting her an opportunity, and then, having a huge hit like that was fantastic for our psyche.
Mary Washington is one of the 6 playoff teams. This is the first conference sweep of the year for your team. Was it a boost for your team to take both games against Mary Washington after not doing so against a conference opponent all year?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was needed. We talked about it leading up to it, I think, during the week, that we needed to win both games if we wanted to play in the conference tournament, and they set their mind to it. They did a very good job of staying in the moment, I think, and then after that first game 1 win, it certainly takes some pressure off of you for game 2. But I thought that they handled the adversity well and kind of rode the wave of momentum when we had it.
And then after Mary Washington, you're in CNU. Game 2, CNU's up 4-0 in the 6th. Aaliyah Ramey with a pinch hit grand slam. Have you seen that before for one of your teams in your time at Frostburg?
No, I actually told her after the game that I was I believe in 13 years that is the first pinch hit grand slam I've ever had. I don't know that I would have ever come across it. I've had a couple pinch hit home runs, but not pinch hit grand slam. An awesome moment for her. Came up big. We just scored a run, so it was 4-1 at the time. Had their pitcher on the ropes a little bit and did a fantastic job with an at bat, and then lucky enough to get her first collegiate home run. So it was a sweet time to get it.
A great time to get it against the number 11 team in the country. Short pitched into the 9th against one of the better teams in the region, if not the country. It would have been a nice game to win, but what can you take away from being that competitive with a CNU team that only has 1 loss all season in conference?
Yeah, I mean they're a very good team. If you go back and look over the last 4 years, the CNU Frostburg stat lines have included a lot of extra inning games. I mean, I think it's a team that we match up with well. I think it's a team we battle with well, and I think we've shown our grit over the years playing with them. They're certainly a talented team this year, but I mean, I think it was you never want to lose those games, especially when we took the lead in the 6th inning. They do a great job of battling right back, and they get a sac fly in the bottom of the 6th to tie it back up. But yeah, I mean, I think anytime you can play well against good teams, I think that's always a confidence boost. We need to take the next step and beat them.
Yeah, you'll see CNU again on Friday as well in the CAC tournament. Some other storylines I want to sort of dive into. For the first month of the season, Sam Gatton was hitting under 300. She's at almost 400 now in conference play in 12 games. How have you seen her kind of get back on track and really lead your team offensively?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of those things we talk about when we get to play regular. The beginning of the season is tough because we're only playing on weekends. Weather can affect us. We didn't get a chance until April to play above 55 degrees, I think, which isn't conducive to hitting. But I think she's had a little minor tweaks, I think, early on in the season that weren't being successful for her, and I think the ability to make those adjustments and sort of continue to make good at bats is what we talk about with her.
Yeah, she's leading this team in batting average as well as batting average in conference play. I want to hit on Allison Short and the fact that she's pitched extra inning games against York, CNU, and Salisbury, who are the top three teams in the conference standings. The fact that she's willed this team into very competitive games against the best teams in the conference, how has that helped everyone else on the team, lots of young players, progress and develop and get in those high leverage situations?
Yeah, confidence. I think that they have complete and utter confidence in her, as do I. I think the calmness that they can play with her, knowing that, the other day we made a couple errors, gave up a home run. It was 4-0, and her job is to keep us in the game, and she did it. And eventually we ended up breaking through and taking the lead even. But yeah, I mean, I think she's a fantastic pitcher and someone who I think all the younger girls can look to from a form of competitiveness about not giving in and not settling. It's an important part of who she is, and I think that shows, especially against good teams.
Finally, how nice has it been to get outside, and what have you chosen to spend your practice time on after being cooped up so long?
Well, we've only actually been outside twice as a full team practice.
Wow. Yeah.
So, last week we had snow on Tuesday, which didn't allow us outside at all before this past weekend. So, technically can answer your question, but it's still been since April. April 11th, I think, was our last outside practice. Or 12th.
Wow.
So I mean, it's gotten better. I think just being able to play regular. So last week was a little tough because we were back inside the full time. Getting outside to play today. Hopefully tomorrow. Those types of things are better than practice from that standpoint. As far as what are we trying to do, just get a lot of reps on dirt, man. That's what we've been missing all year, and that's what we've been kind of needing. Throwing the bases from an outfield standpoint, knowing what to do and where to go, and then just a lot of repetition.
Finally, Penn State Harrisburg today, and you're going to probably see them Friday as well in the first game. Does that change about anything about how you'll manage these games today? Just really go out and try to win and do the same on Friday?
Yes. Did you want? Oh, I'm sorry. You want me to expand on that?
Go right ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we got to do us. I mean, it's not about hiding anything, saving anything. I feel like I've got one of the best pitchers in the conference, if not the best pitcher in the conference. I think it's, it'd be crazy for me not to try to finagle it so that they don't see her or whatever. We're still trying to win. First goal is to win these two games today. Do our best to get there. So.
Should be fun. Should be fun on Friday back in Virginia for you. Wes Landrum, thank you so much for joining me on the Bobcast.
Thank you, Andy.
Next on the Bobcast, we have men's and women's tennis head coach Aaron Wilf. Men's and women's tennis wrapping up its regular season on both sides, with each team finishing the CAC regular season against York College. The men ended the year with a win against Bethany College on Sunday. The women finishing the year with 5 wins and a Capital Athletic Conference win over Penn State Harrisburg. The men with the win over Bethany finish out the year with 4 wins. So, Coach, looking at York and Bethany, what did you make of your teams and the tennis that they played here to close out the season?
Yeah, it was a good weekend for us. I thought we competed pretty hard against York on Saturday. It was a good road trip for us. We had the usual characters out there in the starting lineup, so I got to see the guys kind of finish strong in the CAC conference. We had Shasta and Nate actually at 1 doubles against York. On the men's side, I thought they looked pretty good. 8-2 was the final score, and we actually got David Kramer into the mix at number 3 doubles with Chad O'Neill. Those guys look great. 8-4 at 3 doubles. And then Derek Thompson, Jeffrey Goldring played at 2 doubles. So, strong performance in the doubles. Then looking down in the singles on the men's side at York, again, Jeffrey Goldring, strong performance at number 4 singles. We got David Kramer in number 5 singles. He looked really, really great on Saturday. Played to a 6-1, 6-4 score. And, really everyone just battled as hard as they could on the men's side at York. And then on the women's side, we had Kate and Jenna, again, number 1 doubles, played against a really solid team, but I really thought that they battled as hard as they could. Sammy Turner, Elizabeth Mott at number 3 doubles against York looked really, really solid. They played to an 8-4 score. And in singles, really everyone looked good. I thought, Allison Paul at number 3 singles stood out for me, 6-2, 6-2. And then Sophia Staggers at number 5 singles, I thought played a really solid match down there, and was on the short end of a 6-1, 6-3 score. But yeah, overall, good day at York College. We finally got a little bit of sun,
Sure.
which always helps. We've been lacking that a little bit this year.
Big time.
But yeah, I thought there was no quit, there was no give up, and we certainly competed as hard as we could down at York College.
Were you pleased to see the men kind of rewarded with the intensity that they've played with this year? They've been excited to be there and pick up a win to finish the season and kind of go out on a high note, if you will.
Yeah, it was a really good day for us yesterday. Up at Mountain Ridge High School against Bethany College. We played to a 6-3 win. Really, really good to kind of have that W as you kind of walk into the off season, walk into the summer months, and to get out of there against a good school with a 6-3 win was great. Doubles, again, Joey Cox, Derek Thompson has just been a recipe for success for us, and we love those two playing together. They played at number 2 doubles yesterday. They played to an 8-1 final score, and we actually had Nate and Chad play at number 1 doubles yesterday. They lost 8-2, but I thought they played really well. In the singles, it just was a battle. I mean, it really, really was a battle at all 4 positions. Shasta, number 1, won the first set, dropped a really, really tight second set in the tiebreaker. Joey played a really solid first set. Kind of had a tough second set, but I thought the story was really at 3 and 4 singles for us against Bethany. We had Jeffrey Goldring, who's just been so special for us all year. That was just an incredible match. That was 6-3, 4-6, 7-6, 7-1 was the scoreline. Very impressive. He won the first set, dropped the second, and just played out to a third set tiebreaker. And it was just a special win. That was actually the match-clinching win. And then Stephen Glassbrenner at number 4 singles on senior day. He's a senior. This was his last ever collegiate tennis match. He dropped the first set 7-5. He came back. He won the second set 7-3 in the second set tiebreaker, and then just finished so strong in the third set, won 6-1 to make the final score 6-3. But it was just really, really great singles matches. So, yeah, it was just a great team win against Bethany College.
It was nice to see a couple of those close and even comeback singles wins, especially when you think back this season, McDaniel, Geneva, Penn State, Harrisburg, where how close this team has been on the men's side so many times to win a match like that where the singles play comes through after the doubles takes care of business. Is that the kind of thing you can kind of build on in terms of momentum into next season?
Yeah, it was definitely challenging. I think a lot of those matches we felt like we were right in it. Like you said, there were several this year. We had 5-4 matches that really could have gone either way. They were just coin flip matches, and we just didn't close the deal. And we definitely looked at the score line against Bethany College and looked at these matches and said, yeah, we actually went out there yesterday and we finished matches. And it definitely puts a smile on my face. It's what you want to see out of your student athletes, just to go out there and close the door, get the job done. And when you have them on the ropes, just finish them off. And we did that. We kind of landed those final punches yesterday. And, yeah, it definitely feels good to take that win into the off season. And, it's going to motivate us to get even better this summer and to come back strong in the fall.
I want to take a step back and sort of look back big picture on the season for these teams. Starting with the men's side, I see improvements across the board in terms of conference singles wins, doubles wins. In 4 of the 6 flights, there are improvements in the singles side. How did your team, in all 3 doubles flights, all of the wins increase there? How did your team achieve the incremental improvement this year, and how do you go ahead and build off of that moving forward?
Yeah, there were really massive improvements this year. I think one of the things we targeted was making strides in the CAC conference, just both the men and the women. I know you brought up the men, but there were some significant improvements that we made in the CAC conference this year, and we're just going to give all the credit to our players, to our student athletes. I think they just stepped up. I think they knew what the goals were, they knew what the expectations were, and I think there was just extra motivation to compete that much harder in the CAC conference this year. Everything was improved this year. I mean, total games won, total matches won in the CAC individually. I mean, everything was really improved stats-wise in the CAC conference. and it's just kudos to the players. I thought Shasta was big all year. One singles, one doubles. He continues to improve. He continues to get better. But I mean, I really thought the additions to our team this year were just so big for us. You know, we had guys stepping up like Derek Thompson, just so big all year. I mean, especially playing with Joey Cox and doubles. They just were so solid. I just mentioned Joey. I mean, he was just so big for us. He's just, you know, physically just like that big lefty presence, you know, on the court. We just loved having him. He's a great character kid. Nate Farlow all year was solid for us, singles and doubles. Chad O'Neal was a great addition to this team. Nolan Jones at the top of the lineup. Justin Davis just is so big for the depth in the singles lineup. I mean, he could play anywhere from, you know, 3 to 6 in this lineup. And then we have guys like Jeffrey Goldring, who just had that magic touch all year. He was the spark. I mean, he was the guy that we looked to, and he always took advantage of opportunities. He was the guy, you know, whenever we had to kind of fill someone in the lineup, whenever we needed someone to step up in the starting lineup, he was the guy that we looked to. We got him in, and he never disappointed. I mean, he's just a great kid. Steven Glassbrenner was another one of those guys. I mean, every now and then we got him in the lineup, and he just competed. He worked his tail off every match. We loved having him. We're looking forward to getting Tim Goldring back, Jeffrey's brother, and you know, he's just a great kid as well. And he was going through a pretty significant hand injury this year, which prevented him from getting a lot of playing time. But we're looking forward to getting him back, and just guys like Abby Alojo, David Kramer. I mean, really everyone just stepped up this year and made some big strides on the men's side in the CAC conference.
Can you pick out a highlight or a moment this year for the men's side that really stands out for you?
It's really tough to target. I think just one thing, I would be doing the others kind of an injustice.
Sure.
But I thought the way we battled against Penn State Harrisburg, you know, losing 9-0 last year and then coming back this year playing to a 5-4 result, I thought that really showed the significant strides that we were making. Really proud of that effort. You know, individually, I think Jeffrey Goldring's singles win against Mary Washington, I think was very special. That was significant for us. And I would also look to Shasta and Nolan's doubles win at number 1 against Salisbury. I just thought was so significant. Those individually were our first ever wins against both Mary Washington and Salisbury. So just some of those strides that we took on the men's side were really special. We're going to remember that, and we're going to feed off of that to continue to get better on the men's side.
Switching gears to the women's side, finishing the year with 5 CAC wins, or 5 wins overall, a CAC win over Penn State Harrisburg. Jenna Lipinski, 3 conference singles wins on the year. How would you characterize this women's season? What stood out to you?
Our women's team are so solid, and I think we were fortunate enough to have the core of our women's team back, and it really starts at the top. I mean, Kay Paler just is our true number 1 singles player, and she's just so passionate on the court, just has the will to want to win, to compete every day. And Jenna Lipinski at 2, but really the core has remained the same, and I think it's that consistency that has allowed for the success on the women's side. Allison Paul, sophomore captain, Sophia Staggers, just an incredible addition for our team. She played primarily at number 5 singles. Sammy Turner, primarily number 4 singles. We just love having her on the team. And then Elizabeth Mott played primarily at number 6. She's a great addition, very quick on the court, very athletic, competitive. She's got a great defensive game that she kind of turns into an offensive game. Really solid counterpuncher. So just kind of, I think, having those 6. And then we were able to kind of filter in a few other players. Ijama was a great addition to this team. Gabby, Satia. So, it was just kind of having the core back. They're all working hard. They all knew each other. And kind of having that chemistry on the women's side in tennis was really significant and kind of helped us make some really good strides.
No seniors on this women's roster, as you referenced. Are you excited about what next year will bring on the women's side, and do you look to bring in some newcomers to add to the already big chemistry mix that you have there for the women's team?
Yeah, like you said, we're not losing anybody. So everyone's back. We're thrilled about that. We actually have 5 commits on the women's side coming in next year. So we feel really, really strong about the commits we have coming in. Like I said, we have 5 on the women's side that are going to join our team of 9 that we currently have. So I think our numbers are going to allow us to do a lot more next year. And yeah, I mean, everything is really going well. All the arrows are pointing up for the women's side. Really 1 through 6, and then we just cannot wait to get these 5 student athletes on campus. We know that they're all going to be competing for starting positions. We really like everyone that we have coming in, and we're going to try to build off this success. It was a solid year. We want to give a quick shout out to Jenna Lipinski. She actually finished overall 7-6. She had a winning record in singles this year, and she finished 3-3 in the CAC conference. So as a number 2 singles player, I think that's been done less than a handful of times by a Frostburg State number 2 singles player in the CAC conference. So she's going to continue to get better. We're just so proud of her efforts, and really everyone is going to continue to get better. They all work hard. They're all incredible student athletes, and we just cannot wait to see what next year brings.
With the challenges of this year, the court renovations, the weather, do you feel like your teams were brought closer together because of the adversity they had to face this year, and they'll be better for it in the coming years?
Yeah, it definitely brought us closer. I think anytime you have to battle through those adverse conditions and those challenges, it's really kind of whatever does not kill you makes you stronger. And I think this really made us a lot stronger as a team, having to travel down to Constitution Park and LaVale every day, and having to kind of drive down to practices, drive back, and it definitely. It wasn't the easiest thing for these student athletes to do on the men's and women's side. But as I've said before, I'll say it again, nobody complained. They just went to work. And it was one of those things, they understood the situation. We prepared them ahead of time, and they just did what they had to do. We went down to practice every day. We got the reps in. We got the work in. And I think it translated very well, but it definitely brought us closer. I think if we can overcome these challenges, it is going to make us better. We're going to see this, really taking effect next year, as we continue to grow as a team. And we're all looking forward to our new facility that we can play on this coming fall in August.
What does the off season look like for a summer for a college tennis player, and what are you hoping for your athletes this summer?
Well, we have a pretty solid strength and conditioning program in place. We're hoping that everyone continues to develop in the strength and conditioning program. We hope that they continue to do work on their own, continue to hit the weight room, continue to do the running and everything that they need to do to physically get better. And then we're just hoping that they get on the court. It's something that we obviously don't have the weeks in the NCAA to make anything mandatory in terms of what we can do as a school. But I mean, all the kids do have opportunities to kind of get out on the court this summer, get the reps in, put the work in. So I think that, along with continuing their strength and conditioning program, is really going to make us a much better team going into next year. And we really believe that we have the student athletes here now in place that are all going to want to continue to get better. With all these recruits coming in, I think that there's going to be battles for positions, competition for jobs, and I also think that they saw that, we are able to make strides in the CAC conference, and I think next year it's going to be about how much further can we get, and I think they all know that the work that they do in the off season, there's going to be a direct correlation to that and to the success that we're going to have next academic year.
Coach, for you, it's the end of year 2 here at Frostburg. Can you feel the program moving in that right direction in terms of the culture? Are the players understanding this is what we're trying to do? This is our program, and this is where we're trying to go. Have you felt that, and have you seen that out of your team?
The culture is absolutely changing. It's moving in the right direction. We are really kind of filtering in student athletes to these programs, both the men and the women, that are buying into what we believe, our system, what we are preaching every single day. It's going to continue to get better. But yeah, there has been a culture change. We're seeing that on the court. We're seeing that off the court as well. Just things like strength and conditioning. A lot more kids are really buying into that. Study hall. I mean, our grades, our GPA is getting a lot better. So it's not just on the court, but it's off the court as well. And like I said earlier, in the CAC conference, we are seeing every single year that our numbers are progressively getting better, and that is because these kids are buying into our system, they're buying into this new culture, and they're going to continue to buy into this culture. And we have recruits coming in next year that are already starting to buy into what we're selling, and I think for all those reasons, we're just so optimistic and so excited about moving forward with these two tennis programs.
I'll tell you what, I'm fired up for next fall, August, so some brand new courts. And Coach Aaron Wilf, thank you for joining us all year long on the Bobcast.
Thank you.
Next, I have with me track and field head coach Dale Louie, and the Bobcat women finishing third, the men finishing fourth at the Mason-Dixon Invite at Gettysburg. The women cleaning up in terms of the sprinting events. Gabrielle Reason taking the 100 meters, a runner-up at 200 meters. Kayla Truesdell winning the 400. Destiny Logan second right behind her. The relay squad finished first in the 4x400. The 4x1 took second and qualified for ECACs. The men, 3 ECAC marks as well. Shamar Nelson, John Kearns, Michael Harley. So what do you make of the team's overall performance at Gettysburg, and are the results where you'd expect them to be a couple weeks out from the championships?
I mean, generally speaking, happy. We're making some progress with the nicer weather. We really weren't all that concerned about, where we place as a team. Our concern with the way the weather's been this year is mostly just, can we get some seed times? Can we shuffle some relays around and look at some combinations and things? And we achieved that. Could we have scored more points there? I mean, quite honestly, our men probably could have easily won that meet if we had done some things differently. But we didn't go in there with that in mind. Our focus more is at the end of the year there. Because we need to get people hopefully into some faster sections and better flights and things like that at the conference championships.
Well, when it comes to seedings, really, it's next week against Shippensburg and then off to CACs. Are you just about done with that, or are you looking for quite a few more seedings or times to move up as we move towards the conference championships?
Yeah, that's a good question. It'd be nice to have another week or so.
Yeah.
Because really what we are mostly going to be doing this weekend is cutting back a little bit in terms of what our runners are doing. For example, our longer distance people who've run some longer races, like 10Ks this past weekend, will be taking a week off. They will not be racing this weekend. And we'll cut back some of the load of some other people. We had some people, doing 3-4 events at Gettysburg the last couple of weeks, and we'll cut that back. We are going to probably not run 4x4s and just focus a little bit more on some individual sharpening, and again, as you suggest, trying to get some better seat times.
Speaking of the 4x4 teams, the women's side won the indoor ECAC championship. ECAC times already for the outside. You've got quite a few sprinters. You mentioned earlier in the year you're looking to clean up on the handoffs and everything. Does that group, whatever combination you'll put together in the relays, do you see that group having a chance to chase a CAC title, if not try to compete in terms of nationally in terms of their time?
But both of our women's relay teams will be certainly in a mix, for perhaps winning. We would expect that their times will come down with the competition that we'll see at the CAC.
Sure.
Which is good. It will help everybody. The second part of your question in terms of trying to get the nationals and things. It's a little hard to get a handle on a national picture right now because the weather has been so bad all across the country.
Yeah.
And I've said a number of times now that I think this is going to be one of those years where coaches will be taking their people to the very last day all over the place, just chasing the best performances. It's not the best way to go into national meet, being maybe dead tired or whatever, but you got to do what you got to do to try to get in. So it's going to be interesting. Both of our female relay teams have been in the position where if the season were to end, we'd be there right now. at the national championship. So that's encouraging. It's not surprising, because we felt like we had, after the indoor season, the ability to take a run at that. I mean, there's no guarantees, but we have the talent. We have some combinations that we can experiment with, not only in terms of personnel, but also placement of the personnel and relays. And we've been doing a little bit of that. We've had some success with that. We continue to tinker with that a little bit. We're doing the same thing on the men's side as well.
With how bad the weather has been, is it conflicting as a coach in terms of filling out your lineup each week? And do you do it on a case-by-case basis where you want them to be fresh and ready for the conference championship meet, but you also want them to run their best times, say, at Shippensburg this week if the weather is there to cooperate? How do you deal with those decisions?
Excellent question. Hard answer. We've, always preached, or I've always preached at the college level here, that you better put your time in at practice, because the collegiate outdoor season is so short, running into your conference championships, that you better have a level of fitness for when that nice day comes, and, to take advantage of that. And that's a big mind shift for a lot of high school athletes coming to the collegiate. They're many of them are very, very used to competing their way in our sport into shape at the high school level, and then you get here and you're not racing 2 or 3 times a week, and so you better be putting some effort into your practice, or you're not going to see good results, because it's going to be difficult to run your way into shape at the collegiate level. You can run your way into shape, but the question is, can you run your way into collegiate competitive shape? And that's a big shocker for a lot of people. So that, we are going to, we're not looking at Shippensburg this weekend as a throwaway meet, for sure. We'll have our 4x1 relays, stacked, and hopefully it's the last dress rehearsal for CAC. And then in some of the other individuals, what we're going to be doing with them is simply trying to perhaps put them in an event to sharpen them up for the CAC. Quite frankly, with the weather the way it's been this year, I would not be the least bit surprised to see a lot better performances for our individuals who are competing after the conference championships. It's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah, there are more nice days on which you can run.
Right, yeah.
How was, speaking of that and running into shape, how was the change in weather? I know it's not been entirely good here in the last few weeks, but how has the change affected the team maybe positively in the last 2 or so weeks?
I think all athletes appreciate that nice spring weather once it finally comes around, and you hope it sticks around for a while. That's been obviously an issue this year. And get a lot more done at practice. You're not in our sport. You got to be a little bit worried about injuries. With the real cold weather, sprinting in particular and stuff. So the warm weather enables you to get more done at practice. You get more done at practice, you should have some better results on the weekends.
Finally, this weekend is at Shippensburg. Will we see other Division II teams there in terms of the competition? Is this meet? Are you looking for that to sort of drive your athletes?
Yeah, this will be probably the biggest meet that we've seen all year, indoors or outdoors. A lot of Division III schools, a fair number of Division IIs. We've been seeing more Division I, or at least components of Division I schools this year. It's been kind of interesting. In fact, I'm not sure that we've been at a meet yet outdoors this year where we've not competed against at least one or more Division I schools. Again, that's a positive for us as far as we're concerned.
Big time. And what are you expecting for your team this week, and how does the practice plan really lay out as we lead up to the CAC championships?
Well, definitely cranking it up. I mean, this is the week where we really want to crank up the practice. We want to do as well as we can at Ship, but more importantly, the eyes on the prize of the CAC the following week. So So this is a very crucial tune-up week for us. And, on the running side, some real, quicker stuff taking place for everybody. Cutting back the volume a little bit, but increasing the intensity. For our throwers and jumpers, we're trying to get some real, trying to put it all together. Not doing a lot of throwing, not doing a whole lot of jumping, but still what we do, making it quality.
Sure. Well, men's and women's track and field, a big meet this weekend on Shippensburg, and then on to Salisbury for the CAC Championships next week. Dale Louie, thank you for joining me on the Bobcast.
Thank you.
Next on the Bobcast, I have women's lacrosse head coach Hayley Whear. And women's lacrosse finished out its year against York and Salisbury, a final record of 5-10-1, 2-6 in the CAC. That's good for 7th in the conference, missing out by what probably will be just a single game on the conference tournament. Some season highlights: conference wins over Southern Virginia and Wesley. Morgan Cavey ending the year with 55 goals, the second most in single-season Frostburg history. So, Coach, looking at this year kind of a big picture, what will you remember and take away from this 2018 team?
I think a couple different things. We talked a lot yesterday at our end of the year picnic about a couple positive things. So Morgan being one of them, entering the record book for that. Her sister Summer Cavey entering the record book for draw controls, and then the whole team entering the record book for draw controls this year. So that's exciting for me in the draw because we moved 3 new people to it from last year. And so to move new people and to still have a successful season in that, I think there's a positive growth that we can continue to move forward as we bring Summer and Biggs back next year. So,
is there a game or a day where you can point to where this was a day where our team was at its best in 2018?
I don't know if there's one day in particular. I think we had some highlights in each one. I was talking to them that I think the closest that we had to a complete 60 minutes was against Randolph-Macon. The score didn't really reflect it, but I just felt personally overall that was the best that we've played for the longest period of time. I think every game we took something away from what we were looking for this year, and it just kind of added up to our little goals that we had set for ourselves since we didn't achieve our huge goal of making the conference tournament.
From our earliest conversations this season, that the topic of playing a 60-minute game has come up, and throughout the year, Frostburg has been competitive through the first half of the first half, a whole first half, 40 minutes, so on, and then ran out of gas at the end. I'm thinking of Susquehanna, Bridgewater, CNU, Randolph-Macon, as you mentioned. What were the challenges that kept the team from achieving a 60-minute game, and how can you build up to that, say, next season?
I think a lot of it is the leadership on the field and having so many new people that we are trying to put into place. I think that everyone kind of stepped up here or there, but it was never consistent throughout the entire season. So one game someone might be on, and then the next game they would be off again, and then it would switch back and forth. And so that was a little frustrating on our part. We couldn't just get a handle on having multiple people on the same day. So it kind of just went back and forth each day. And so I think that having some time now and moving our 10 freshmen who were a key part in our starting lineup to moving into their second year looking forward, I think that we'll have a lot more consistency now that they kind of know what they're getting into and are ready to kind of make the move into that transition of holding themselves accountable into that.
Coming into the year, we knew that this team had the young roster with the aforementioned 10 freshmen or first-year players with a relatively small roster. How did the team deal with being so young throughout the season, and did you see progress in terms of that consistency once you get towards the end of the year?
I think that they were frustrated at times that we kept comparing to last year and would say like, oh yeah, going into this game we know that this team's like this or we played like this, and to rethink that our team was completely different than last year. It's not really what the other team was doing, it's more that our team is different, that we needed to change our mindset. So I think that was the biggest frustration. I think that yes, there's been some consistency in some of them. I also think that a lot of them had some roller coaster seasons, and which is to be expected as a first year. I think that you don't really hit your peak until sophomore or junior year anyway. So I think that was expected. It's just I think, put a little bit higher expectation and a little more hope that we would be a little bit more further along than we were.
Mm-hmm. In terms of taking that next step, There are 3 ranked teams in the CAC that year in and year out are in the playoffs. And then there's that next 3, which was CNU, Marymount, and St. Mary's. And head-to-head, all 3 of them, if you win one of those games, maybe you're in the tournament. How far off would you say this Frostburg team this year was from the level of a CNU, Marymount, and St. Mary's? And how can Frostburg reach that tier, say, next season?
I think that leading up until this year, we were in that middle group.
Yeah.
I think it was very consistent that way, and it was pretty a flip of the coin in the middle of the season of knowing like who was going to win. It just was very unsure. This year, I think we all thought that we were still in that middle bracket, and that's what I meant by we needed to kind of reassess where we were and reevaluate and say that we're not there this year, and let's set some other goals of how we can kind of move forward and be successful in what we're doing right now, and then hopefully get back to that middle tier. So I think having that consistency of a little bit more and bringing in some new freshmen that we have coming in next year, I think that we'll easily get back to that middle tier.
In terms of individuals, Morgan Cavey obviously had a monster year in terms of her offensive production, but can you also speak to her unselfishness and willingness to be part of that draw control unit over the last month or so of the season?
So that was huge. We had been struggling a little bit on some of these conference games, and we knew it was going to be tough, and one person couldn't do it, and so we had put a lot of pressure on Jess Hartley before to kind of continue to take it over and over, and she's not a midfielder, she's a defender, and she ran out of steam pretty quick playing midfield for us. So we had tried Summer on the draw, but she is such a key part to playing on the circle because she's our most competitive, and she's the best at getting ground balls, so it's kind of hard to put her on taking the draw and against some of their better players who are playing on the circle. So Morgan's our next kind of option of who has never taken it before, but she is just so competitive at practice. Her and her sister go head-to-head constantly for ground balls. She just doesn't even hesitate. She just goes for it. So I knew at least we'd have a fighting chance, regardless of if we won it or not. She would give 100% all the time. So we asked her to take it, and she didn't hesitate or skip a beat, and she's had some back problems, so we were kind of hesitant about it. But she, I think, did phenomenal, and I think that every game she kind of proved that that's just another skill that she has besides attack.
It was really remarkable with the offensive season that she had, that she was open to helping the team in that way, and kudos to her for that. I want to touch on the 10 newcomers this season. Virtually all of them played in just about every game. For you as a college lacrosse player, how big of an adjustment was it to join the college ranks? And you mentioned you expect players to peak sophomore, junior, senior year. How do you think they handled that adjustment this season, and how big is this class in the program moving forward?
So we talk about this a lot. When we talk to recruits coming in, we always are upfront and say, this is a program where we want you to be able to play. We don't want you to sit on the bench until your junior year. We think that you have the opportunity to start if you want to, but again, you have to put in the hard work behind it to get there every day. So our lineup is never the same. A lot of times, like you mentioned, we played all 10 of them. Like, it just changes every game depending on who showed up for practice, who's ready that day. And so I think the idea of it to when you're a recruit is so exciting of like, oh yeah, I could start or I could play as a freshman. And then you get here and you do, and then we're like, okay, now we have these expectations of you that now you have to put the ball in the back of the net, and we need you to turn the ball over, and we need you to carry the ball up the field. And then it's kind of like a little bit of panic of like, wow, there is a lot of pressure on me right now. So I think that, again, that's probably part of our consistency problem, is that some days they were like, yes, I've got it, I can do this. And other days they were like, no, I'm not ready to handle all this. So to have 10 of them that virtually a lot of them did start, it is a lot of pressure, and I think that they took it, and I think they handled it, maybe not as consistently, like we said, as we would have liked, but I think that there's so much potential in that class, and I'm excited that all of them are coming back, and I think that they have a lot of talent, and I think with some confidence now behind them, they'll move forward easily next year.
On the flip side, you have 6 seniors in Jess Hartley, Samantha Cataldo, Courtney Ridenauer, Lachelle Coates, and Tara Whitney all graduating. They were part of that playoff team in 2017. What did they bring to the table over the course of this past season?
I think that just the knowledge of knowing where this team has been and seeing that positive impact of we did make it to conference playoffs, and that game is so important that we play, and just kind of bringing that background information of it, that it is possible and that we have hung with some of these teams, and some of their freshman year and sophomore year, the scores were a little bit different. And so I think that having that and projecting that on to the freshmen of saying, like, this is possible, and don't go into it looking like it's a complete loss all the time. Like, I think that was really helpful to kind of see them because they have been there and they have known it. So I think that overall that they were able to project that onto the rest of the team of saying, like, it is what it is and let's just go out there and fight as 100% as what we can.
Finally, what does an off-season look like for a college women's lacrosse program? What is your team and coaching staff up to into the coming months?
So both my assistants, unfortunately, are leaving this year, but I have them for a little bit longer. So the next couple weeks, we're going to try to get to some high school games of some 2019s that we're still looking at to try to see if we can close the deal on them. And then as we enter into June, that's our busy recruiting season, and that'll start every weekend. And so both of them will be leaving probably around that time of between June and July. And so I will also be out in the middle of June. So we'll be watching a lot of film online and suggest a lot of recruits send us some film if we do not get to make it to the tournament. But it's recruiting season now, and we're excited to kind of bring in some new talent.
And how excited are you for next season and a chance to build off what you saw in 2018?
I'm really excited. We have, again, 10 other freshmen coming in next year, or 9 freshmen and 1 transfer at this point. So we're so excited to kind of build upon that and bring in a new group that can kind of help with talent-wise. And now that we'll have some consistency on the back end of making our team a little bit larger on the older side of it instead of being so young, I think that'll really help.
Well, head coach Hayley Whear, thank you so much for doing this all week of the season, and good luck here into the summer.
Thanks, Andy.
Next on the Bobcast, we have men's lacrosse head coach Tommy Pearce, and men's lacrosse, we've been talking about the date April 28th all season long. The men's lacrosse team finished the year 4-4 in conference play, and depending on Wednesday's result between Southern Virginia and Mary Washington, Frostburg will either finish as the 4th seed and host Southern Virginia or finish as the 5th seed and travel to Mary Washington. So, Coach, this may be a dumb question, but with postseason play starting, does anything change in how the team, or how you coach, how the team prepares, practice, anything when it comes to, win or go home situations?
I would say that it might be more impacted by the score of the game on Saturday, the way that we practice. We have a bye date on Wednesday, and a lot of the other conference teams are playing. So we kind of told the guys that we're going to use that to our advantage and really take a look at some things that were exposed on Saturday that we can get better at to make us, hopefully win the first round conference game this coming Saturday. So, not so much just the playoffs, so much as it was that we had a really tough day on Saturday. We need to take a good hard look at that and see, what we need to do this week to get better.
Yeah, the way that the schedule ended up this last week of the season, you found York and Salisbury in the final 2 games. York, a close game, Salisbury, a larger result for the Seagulls. Can you point to specifically what your team learned on Saturday that it will need to clean up in, say, a semifinal or championship setting?
I think making sure that we run our clear a little bit better and we're a little bit more patient with our looks rather than getting a little frustrated by the score and kind of just throwing some ill-advised passes into the clearing game that maybe aren't the best passes to throw. So, we're going to take a look at our clear very, very closely. The defense, obviously, our defense against Salisbury gave up a lot more goals than we'd like to. So we're obviously going to look at, how we're defending that and where we're sending our slides from, our off-ball defense. And then, had a hard time scoring any goals also. So I guess I've covered about everything now. But, Salisbury does a lot of kind of pressuring with their short sticks and shutoffs, and we thought we went into that game with a plan. Didn't work great, so maybe we need to revisit our plan and see if we can make some adjustments to make us better, obviously, for whoever we see on Saturday, and then hopefully beyond.
In the playoffs, will you expect to see that sort of pressure from, say, any team you'll see in terms of a 10-man ride or aggressive against your clear game?
If they watch the film and they see that we're having some problem with it, obviously I think so. But a lot of other teams have done that this year. We've handled it pretty well sometimes and obviously not so well other times. So, like I told our guys, we need to make sure that we take advantage of having our bye date at the end here, when most of the other conference teams are still playing each other so that we can, really focus on ourselves. It's tough to focus on yourself too much when you're preparing for a midweek game on Wednesday, but now, we can't start preparing for anybody until Thursday because, we know the 2 options, but so we're going to use that to our advantage to make sure that we're feeling really great about what we're doing going into the conference tournament.
I want to talk about the York game last week where, the last 2 years it's been really close with York. What was your game plan going in? How did your team execute early and where did things get off track in the second quarter?
We didn't win a face-off in the first half.
Yep.
So obviously, and I think that we didn't fail any clears in the second half, but we failed a couple there in the second quarter. So, I think our thing all year has just been kind of that we're giving other teams more possessions than we're getting, through some struggles against some really good teams when they have some good face-off guys, and then just some failed clears that have been are kind of like Achilles heel of ours all season. But I think defensively, I think we did a very good job defending them. I think our goalie played great, and I think once we started winning some faceoffs and clearing the ball, that turned the tide. So I think going into another matchup like that, obviously, that's what we need to really, really take care of early. And then when we do get some offensive opportunities, we didn't score many goals on Wednesday or Saturday, so a couple tough defenses really gave us some offensive struggles, and obviously, I guess we're gonna definitely pay a lot of attention to that here in the next 3 days until we know who to prepare for starting Thursday.
How do you talk to your team and just how did you get more out of them in the second half? Where when you talked to Dan at halftime, being 0 for 8 on faceoffs, you pretty much just said, I need more. As a coach, how do you go about communicating that to your guys?
We think that in the course of a game, sometimes our wing guys just kind of lose their tenacity on each individual faceoff, where some guys are kind of on the wing and they're not coming off the wing very driven to go get that ball. You know what I mean? So I think sometimes when we point out how poorly we're doing and how much we need more from them, this is the frustrating part for me, is that all of a sudden they start doing it rather than doing that every single time. So I think when we kind of watch guys off the wing and we don't like the tenacity they're coming off the line with on the whistle, then we give other guys some opportunities. And I also think that Matt Pagliaro is a guy that tends to kind of figure out face-off guys as the game goes along. So
sure.
He tends to do a little bit better in the second half. But we think Drew Mash is doing well and definitely deserves to get some reps, as is Mike Thorne. Mike Thorne wasn't taking face-offs early, so those three guys. Sometimes we don't know really who's given us the best option, and we're trying to figure out in game by statting like who's winning clamps and who's not winning the clamps, and trying to make sure we're putting the guy out there that's giving us the best opportunity to win face-offs. But when everybody's struggling a little bit, it gets a little bit hard to tell which guy's the best guy at that time. So we keep trying to figure it out in game, and obviously in practice, all those guys give each other fits. So it's kind of hard in practice to tell, which guy's always the best guy, based on watching them face off against each other. But that's even, when you play other teams, other face off guys are different than the other guys in practice. So, again, try to evaluate in game and make sure we have a pretty good game plan going into it. But I think a lot of times, we're winning clamps, but we're losing the ground ball battle to, just in that kind of 3-on-3 game.
Mm-hmm.
After the first whistle, other guys are doing a little bit better picking up the ground ball than we are, which is, frustrating, but it is what it is. We'll keep working at it.
You did get more out of your team in the second half, and something that maybe attracted you to this job. Do you and in turn your team enjoy getting the chance to play York and Salisbury every year with at least one of those games at home? And after the game, you mentioned that you really liked the energy against York that your team played with, and how hard is it for a player to balance sort of the adrenaline and the excitement of playing one of those programs with making good decisions and executing what you want?
Sure. Very, very, very difficult. I think there's times where it feels like maybe Salisbury's pressuring you more on defense just because they're Salisbury, and the guys are a little nervous coming into that game, which is something that we try to, kind of just approach every game as, we're just playing the next opponent, and it's the next opportunity. We need to play lacrosse our way. And I think that might have gotten to us a little bit on Saturday, unfortunately. But yeah, I think in the recruiting process, what I try to do is find guys that are excited about the opportunity to evaluate themselves against the best teams in the country every year. Obviously in conference, but I think our non-conference schedule, we try to make it so that our non-conference schedule prepares us for our conference schedule. And, hopefully when we have some good years, it opens up some opportunities, maybe to be a pool C or to prepare to, like we're talking about now, it takes,
Yep.
we have to win 3
Get
games.
in.
If we want to go to the NCAA tournament now, our pool C resume isn't there. So, all the cards are on the table, and we need to get better this week and take it one game at a time. And, I think that this group of guys, I don't think they're going to be too discouraged by what happened on Saturday, which is great
Sure.
because it's hard not to be. But this is a group of guys that's very competitive, and I think that they feel like they could win any given game when they step on the field. So I think we're gonna have a great week, and I'm really looking forward to the conference tournament here.
Do you find that seniors are more reliable in potentially those games because they've played in those games against the Yorks and Salisburys before? And did you find that in this past week?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's late in the season and some guys are banged up. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But that's everybody's got some guys that are banged up. It's a physical sport. It's late in the year, we're also hoping to get some guys some rest and maybe get them healthy. But by the end of the week. But your seniors that have been on the field have experienced it a little bit more, and it's not as much of a new situation. But we also we need to play more guys than just our seniors to have enough guys to survive the game. So, hopefully last week was a big week as far as, the opponents that we played in 1 week and really understanding, what level the top two teams in the conference are playing at going into the conference tournament.
Finally, Frostburg started the year in conference play 0-2 against CNU and Mary Washington, and those were close games you maybe could have had. How far has this team come from those first two dates until this point, right before the conference tournament, and what kind of confidence do you have in your group?
I think that after we suffered those first two losses, we kind of had some pressure-filled games there in the middle of our conference schedule. Those are some games that we didn't know we knew that York and Salisbury were obviously going to be very tough opponents, and if we put ourselves in a position to need to win those games to get in, then that was going to be challenging. So we really had to win that chunk of games in the middle, and I think that having done that was great. Obviously, I mean, I think it made it so that we didn't have to win Wednesday or Saturday to be in the conference tournament. And now, obviously, the fate is kind of whether we're playing at home or on the road will be determined on Wednesday. But obviously, we've went into Mary Washington earlier this year on a Wednesday and lost in overtime, or a Tuesday, I guess it was. Lost in overtime. So I think we're pretty confident that we match up well with them, and that's one we could pull out. And then, if Southern Virginia's here, that's again a game that we won here earlier in the year. So I think we have a lot of confidence in our ability to prepare this week and hopefully win our first round conference game on Saturday.
Great stuff this week. Good luck in the first round of the playoffs. Tommy Pearce on the Bobcast.
Thank you.